Well, the Eagles finally have their linebacker coach, with strong ties to this promising free agent who wants to play for the Birds. Plus, with contracts lingering for a couple big stars, who's Howie Roseman the most eager to get done? Fletcher Cox weighed in on retirement, and then one Philly staff member's regretting the Kellen Moore hiring. Let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? How we doing? Okay, not gonna lie, I haven't enjoyed seeing much of that nasty red Vegas sphere lately. However, when they decided to change it to the Eagles ring replica, now we're talking.
It's a beaut, Clark, it's a beaut.
Okay, honestly, anything's better than that all-seeing eye of the sphere, but while we're playing I Spy, how about this story of the Pennsylvania man who flew a drone over the AFC Championship game and is now facing 4 years in prison? And that feels like kind of one of those things that's a given, especially these days with security, but I mean, I've never owned a drone. My assumption is this thing was a massive one, since Matthew Herbert of Chad's Ford told the authorities he bought the drone online in 2021 and uses an app to operate it, saying the app previously prevented him from operating the drone due to flight restrictions, but when it worked during the Chiefs-Ravens game, he assumed he was allowed to fly it.
They were so convincing in their argument.
Look, it seems like a no-brainer, but so does maybe not let a Kansas City fan take care of the field like last season. Sorry, I know that was forever ago with the Sodfather conspiracy and everything, yet it sounds like the 49ers have been experiencing the same issues from practices, with reports that the UNLV fields haven't been up to their customary standards. And with some recent rain in the area, the actual Super Bowl field received a decent amount of moisture with it being kept outside. However, unlike last year when the groundskeeper watered it significantly and then didn't allow it to receive sunlight before retracting it back inside and putting a tarp on it, this year the NFL's been doing tests and experimenting with different fields and soils and robotic devices, because God knows the last thing we can do is have the Niners upset. I mean, heck, their crying last season got a rule change to allow for a third QB. Now, if it sounds like I have a particular distaste for the Bay Area team, I do, because who cares for your rival? Although, according to Deebo Samuel, he doesn't view the Eagles as a rival, saying, I only consider rivalries close games. Which, cool bro if you want to go with that argument. Except, remember how just 9 months ago Samuel said the Birds were his most hated team?
Forgive me if I don't shake hands.
I know, he just talks to talk sometimes. But oh, by the way, just to counter his rivalries close games argument, since Deebo's been in the league, San Francisco's played Philly 4 times with each team winning twice, and each team being on the opposite end of a blowout, while the point differential is literally 0. So yeah, doesn't get much closer than that, my guy. I hope the Winers get beat. And I also hope Jason Kelce returns to play another year. Yet I'm not sure Travis Kelce's recent comments mean as much as some people think.
I think so. I don't know. I'm not a betting man, but I think he's got some football left.
What are the odds?
Okay, I think I've said all I can on this topic by this point. Plus, this is really the same message that Trav said a few weeks ago about the big guy still having some football left. However, we did get a little bit from Fletcher Cox, who, remember, Jordan Davis pretty much said without completely saying Fletch is going to retire in the end of the season presser. But Fletch did at least speak about his mindset on the Up and Adams show.
Day by day. We're going to take it day by day.
Show us those plans.
The future with me is, just day by day. Nothing I've thought about, but, just taking it day by day and see where I am.
You're out there hunting, setting traps. You're not thinking about your future with the Eagles?
Well, let's not call it hunting. We harvest animals, so that's a better term, harvest.
Okay, animal harvesting.
Yeah, we harvest animals. So if you say hunting, killing.
We eat them.
He'll tell you. What's his future with the Eagles?
Bright.
All right, personally, this is one where I would love for him to come back as well. However, I'm also of the mindset that if he does come back, he's probably going to take money elsewhere, or he's just going to retire altogether. I don't know. How do you guys feel about Fletch? Either way, there are a couple guarantees for fellas who won't be joining, though, as former Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry was hired by Miami to be their linebacker coach and run game coordinator, which was a little bit odd because it closed the loop on Miami's former linebacker coach Anthony Campanile, assuming I said his name correctly, with the Green Bay Packers reportedly snatching Vic Fangio's #1 target for his linebacker coach. Oh yeah, and Mike Caldwell, the former Jaguars DC, is also out of the running after Mike Garafolo reported the Raiders are hiring him as their linebacker coach. Okay, well here's the silver lining. Tim McManus shared that the Birds are adding former Titans inside linebacker coach Bobby King to the staff and is expected to have a similar role. Now, I don't blame you if you're not sure who that is, and he actually surprisingly doesn't have previous experience coaching with Fangio. However, he was the Chargers assistant linebacker coach for 3 years when Sirianni was there and has 12 years of NFL coaching experience with linebackers. Plus, the biggest connection to the Eagles is that he coached Zach Cunningham during his first 4 seasons in Houston, as well as being reunited for 1 season in Tennessee. So although I'm not really hoping that leads to Cunningham being the answer at starter, it makes sense with a connection. Yet the bigger potential move is the relationship King has with Tennessee linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. Since he was coached this past season by King, and now the 26-year-old is set to be a free agent after posting 163 tackles, which was ranked 5th best in the league, and 2 sacks last season. There you go, another linebacker, but I would like this move, although I know that's not saying much given our squad. But Al-Shaair is 6'2", 230 pounds, and described by one member as a heat-seeking missile dressed up as an NFL linebacker, saying he's a terrific athlete who spends a lot of time around the football. Al-Shaair gets downhill in a hurry and hits like a Mack truck. Good luck finding a rep where he's not playing at full speed and hitting anything that moves. At the same time, I was curious to see what potential weaknesses he has, and unfortunately, the thought is that while he's not bad in coverage, it wouldn't necessarily be listed as a strength of his.
Well, my weaknesses are actually strengths.
Okay, seriously, what do y'all think? Personally, I like the idea, however, he'd probably be in about the $7 million per year range. But it sounds like he'd at least be interested because apparently, according to Nallet on Twitter, I know that's not official, but the dude has a pick with Azeez, said when he asked about coming to Philly, he said that wouldn't be a bad idea since he has a lot of family in Philly and would be nice to be close to them. The other thing to point out is that even with Bobby King, it's likely we'll see another linebacker coach move unless the Eagles stick with Jeremiah Washburn. But regardless of how you feel there, I will say the Kellen Moore hiring as an offensive coordinator was a good one, especially getting the recent leak from Jeff Mosher that Cliff Kingsbury was leading the pack to become the OC but then asked for too much power. Ultimately, I think this was a blessing in disguise, although I get it if you're not necessarily a fan hearing that Philly buckled at the idea of not giving over autonomy. Plus, according to John McMullen, a team source even regrets the move, saying Cliff seemed to be the guy and made more sense with Jalen. And to follow that up, a former NFL GM weighed in agreement that both Moore and Kingsbury are great offensive minds, but if you're looking to highlight what Jalen does well right now, Kingsbury makes more sense to me. If you want him to get better with some more traditional aspects of the position, Kellen can help, but you need to be a little more patient than they have been in the past. I think it's understandable seeing Cliff's coaching of Kyler Murray and utilizing his skill set while also getting him much better to handle the blitz. Yet if you want Jalen to take that next step, then Moore's your guy. Okay, I will say with Kingsbury now in Washington as their OC, it'll be hard not to look down the 95 and wonder what if, especially if we see struggles with Jalen, but I'm confident this is going to be for the best, so we can relax. And like I've mentioned multiple times, it's certainly going to benefit DeVonta Smith, which brings up an interesting topic for the offseason. Should Howie Roseman go ahead and extend Smitty, especially with him now being eligible for the extension? As NBC's Dave Zangaro noted, DeVonta will be eager to get a payday, and the Eagles will be eager to get him well before he sniffs free agency. As a reminder, Smith has 1 more year on his rookie contract, but the Eagles will very obviously pick up his 5th-year option before the May 2nd deadline. So that means at least 2 more years of team control with Smith. But the Eagles have always shown an eagerness to extend their players early, and Smith is the kind of guy you want to keep around. He has been very good in his first 3 seasons and is a culture setter. I completely agree. Plus, another reason to get something done now is let's remember which wide receivers are about to reset the market. CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson are about to play out their 5th-year options and get paid. So similar to the extending Jalen long-term last season, personally, it makes a whole lot of sense to get this done now before the receiver money just skyrockets. The other bigger extension you got to at least try for is Haason Reddick, because another reminder, an extension for Haas saves you about $12 million in cap space this season. However, Reddick's might be a bit more difficult. Like, it was an unbelievable steal whenever Howie signed him to a 3-year, $45 million deal, which ranks him as the 17th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. Yet over the last 3 seasons, there's only 3 guys with more sacks than Reddick, and they all make quite a bit more than the 29-year-old. Those guys being TJ Watt with 62 sacks and $28 million per season, Myles Garrett, 58 sacks at $25 million per year, and Trey Hendrickson and his 53 sacks worth $29 million annually. So yeah, Reddick is clearly underpaid. Okay, this one might take a while because Reddick has a cap hit of $21 million, so you're definitely going to get something done. However, if I'm Haas, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I know my value and you're going to have to pay up. The good news is, at least if you get this done though, you can backload it and then you're at least in a better spot this season. Also on the other side of the line, Josh Sweat is in somewhat of a similar scenario with only 1 year remaining on his contract, yet less of a cap hit in $9 million. However, by extending and backloading here too, you could free up another $2.5 million or so. The question is, would you want to offer another contract to Sweaty? I mean, I get it that there'd be some concern since Josh only got 6.5 sacks this past season, yet like Nick Waters of the Philly Room pointed out, Sweat faced a much more difficult schedule of left tackles than Reddick's right tackles. In fact, the average ranking of tackles Sweaty faced was 25th, whereas Haason's average ranking of tackle faced was 52nd. Now, I'm not saying, and Nick's not saying, number 94 is better than 7, although it's an interesting comparison to make when considering if you'd want to extend him or not. Ultimately, I think they will, and I think that's the right move. The unlikely extension, though, is DeAndre Swift, who I've talked about previously with speculation being how he doesn't offer enough and Agent Zero finds a different suitor. Yet with the report of the New York Giants not expected to franchise tag Saquon Barkley, PFF's Brad Spielberger thinks the Meadowlands are the most realistic landing spot for the 25-year-old running back. Okay, look, I'm going to hate to see Agent Zero go because he's the first Agent Zero ever and all of a sudden you're going to move on from the guy, but it feels like that's where this is trending. However, if you talk about the whole Saquon Barkley argument, yeah, it'd be fun to get him in this offense, but it's still, where are you getting the money from? We have to save it for the defense. And really, I don't think Saquon's getting any serious consideration from Howie. Although the good news is that Jerry Jones isn't giving all Dallas fans the feeling of being serious, with RJ Ochoa sharing his thoughts on the defensive coordinator search, saying, "You can't convince me that starting your external search with Ron Rivera, Mike Zimmer, and Rex Ryan is taking the situation seriously or being any kind of all-in." I don't know, I could see some positive with those candidates, but honestly, I just get a kick out of the turmoil and frustration from the franchise. Either way, Dallas still stinks. This has been the Philly Special.